Hello everybody, it's me, your good friend Sparky, and I'm just going to make a blanket statement right at the beginning of the video here. This is not going to be a defense of the Switch Online expansion pass. In case you've been out of the loop for a couple days and have no idea what I'm talking about, the other day Nintendo finally announced the details for the newest addition to their Switch Online service, the expansion pass, arriving in late October. It's essentially an upgraded version of the existing service. In addition to the features you already get, you get access to Nintendo 64 games, Sega Genesis games, and the new DLC for Animal Crossing New Horizons called Happy Home Paradise. It's essentially an entirely new game built on top of the already existing new Animal Crossing game on the Switch, and it acts as a sequel to Happy Home Designer on the 3DS. And you can get all those neat, nifty new additions for the low price of $49.99. Something about that sentence doesn't sound right. Yeah, the cost of the expansion pass has been met with much criticism. Even I, a hardcore Nintendo fan since childhood, had to raise my eyebrow in confusion at what I was seeing. But, as with all things, there's a reason the expansion pass is being created at an additional cost like this. And I believe it has something to do with a little thing called licensing fees. A licensing fee is a dollar amount needed to be paid for the right to use a property or asset. Whenever Nintendo wants to include a game they don't have ownership to in their Switch Online catalog, they need to pay such a fee to the proper owners. Either that, or they work out some other sort of deal. I don't claim to know the exact inner workings of Nintendo. But licensing fees being involved with all this makes the most sense to me. Obviously, Nintendo does not own anything related to Sega or the Sega Genesis or any imagery associated with that system. So they need to pay Sega for the rights to use their games as part of their online service. And this also can be extended to certain Nintendo 64 games, most notably with the addition of Rareware games to their lineup. While games like Banjo-Kazooie were originally made for Nintendo hardware, they lost any sort of say they had in distributing these games when Microsoft bought up Rare in the early 2000s. So now Nintendo has to pay Microsoft in order to use certain Rare games. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because not only is it confirmed that Banjo-Kazooie is coming to Switch Online, but other famous Rare games of the era might be coming as well. Banjo-Tooie, Jet Force Gemini, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Perfect Dark, we might even be able to get GoldenEye in there. I mean, if Nintendo can get Sora into Smash Bros., I feel like they can make any sort of miracle happen at this point. But that explains the necessity for the expansion pass in the first place. In order to cover whatever sort of fees Nintendo has to pay in order to use these games, Nintendo is basically selling them at an additional cost. Which is fine, that's just how business works sometimes. But why is it so freaking expensive? Let me start out by saying that I am a firm believer that the backlash against Switch Online when it first launched was almost completely unwarranted. Yes, as Nintendo fans we were used to having free online with our systems. But for what the service offered, and at the low price it was offered at, I thought it was a reasonable investment. I got online play, cloud backups for most of my save data, and access to a ton of retro games that I normally wouldn't have. And did I mention that all of the multiplayer in those retro games can not only be played in person, but online as well? I did a full Let's Play of Mario World with my buddy marjosonic using Switch Online. He's got the whole thing recorded and up on his channel if you'd like to check it out. We did run into the occasional hiccup with the connection, but we finished the entire game as a multiplayer playthrough, all without ever being in the same room, or state for that matter. My point is that Switch Online, while a little bare bones at launch, has definitely grown into a service that is well worth the asking price. A full year of service is only $19.99, and it's ridiculously affordable when compared to similar products from Nintendo's competitors. At your basic day job, you can earn $20 in only a couple hours' time. It's not a huge sacrifice, and I've never regretted paying that fee once a year. But now, if you want the expansion pass on top of the regular features, you need to pay twice what the basic Switch Online package is asking for. It's entirely optional, of course, but it's locking away features that people have been waiting for a long time behind a rather large paywall. It's strange, though. When you think about it constructively, $50 for a full year of service still isn't that expensive. That calculates out to about 14 cents a day, You could find that much on the floor of the supermarket or in your couch cushions on a regular basis. But there's a weird psychological effect in play when you see a price increase that's that dramatic. It comes across as off-putting, a little sketchy, and it makes it feel like you're being taken advantage of. After all, for a kid, $50 is a lot of money. Dropping all that cash at once can mean blowing through your allowance savings, or having to fight your parents in order to get them to pay for it for you. And for an adult, that $50 fee can be a lot more critical. It can mean the difference between being able to both buy groceries and pay your bills that week, or having to choose between the two. It really makes you wonder, is the price worth what I'm getting in return? Thinking about it constructively, there isn't much here that's all that inviting so far. Sega Genesis games are readily available in a lot of different forms, including on the Switch's own digital store. Having them as part of Switch Online is neat, but it almost feels like a waste of resources. The Animal Crossing DLC, while it's cool that it's included, is also available as a regular purchase. And I feel like more people would rather just buy it outright than have their access to it be tied to a subscription. Not to mention, not everyone using Switch Online would be playing Animal Crossing. For those users, it's a meaningless feature. The Nintendo 64 games are probably the best addition here, with 4-player online play and the possibility of being able to play the previously mentioned Rareware games on Nintendo hardware. And there's also the certainty of future updates to the game libraries, and maybe even more DLC access. There's a lot of room here for great additions to the service. But even with those couple of good points, is the blown up price justifiable? To put things simply, let's offer a comparison. PlayStation Plus for Sony systems costs $59.99 a year. It's only $10 more than the Switch Online and Expansion Pass bundle. It offers similar features to Switch Online, and is in many ways a superior product. But even if it is the better of the two services, the price of PlayStation Plus has never felt worth it to me. And now, Nintendo is following in Sony's footsteps. So why is it so much more money than the standard Switch Online? I did bring up those pesky licensing fees, but unfortunately I think there's another reason behind this. Nintendo is jacking up the price because they are Nintendo. They think their fans will blindly agree to it and make a profit. And chances are, they're probably right. To illustrate my point, however, I must tap into the darkest of powers, the most sinister of skills. I must use math. Let's start things off by taking a look at the overview trailer for the expansion pass. Obviously, it has not been well received, with over 86,000 dislikes at the time I'm putting together this video. But interestingly, there are also still some likes, 16,000 or so. So that means, of all the people who left an impression on this video, approximately 15.7% of them are essentially saying that they are okay with the price of Switch Online plus Expansion Pass. Now, let's take this ratio of likes and dislikes and say it reflects the general impressions of the entire Switch user base. According to Nintendo's own sales data, as of June 30th, 2021, Nintendo has sold over 89 million Nintendo Switch systems. Taking that 15.7% of people who approve of the expansion pass and applying it to the number of Switch units sold, that would mean approximately 13,973,000 people who own a Switch will be paying for the new service. And that means, at $49.99 a person, Nintendo would be earning $698,510,270 a year through the expansion pass, as long as Switch Online is a thing. Of course, that isn't factoring in people who own more than one Switch, users who would be operating under a family plan, and people who might be upgrading from an existing Switch Online account at the discounted rate that's being offered. And the fact that not everyone uses American money. Maybe I could have thought this analogy through a little better, but you get the point. Even if 85% of the existing player base hates the expansion pass, Nintendo can still make a hefty sum of money off of the remaining 15%. It might not be as much as they want, but almost $700 million is still a lot of money. It leads to what I think is the biggest concern with this whole scenario. If the fanbase complies with this massive price increase and Nintendo gets away with it, what's to prevent them from doing this again in the future? I went from being very excited for the new content to being very apprehensive over upgrading in almost an instant. In my opinion, Nintendo either needs to reevaluate their price point, or really bring it with future updates in order to make the price for the expansion pass worth it. Give us more DLC or even full games as part of the expansion pass, Nintendo. Give us really awesome Nintendo 64 and Sega games that you have a hard time finding otherwise, like Ocarina of Time Master Quest or Knuckles Chaotix. Give us more games like Sin and Punishment that never left Japan, like the original Animal Crossing. Or even do something like when you released Star Fox 2, a game that got cancelled and never saw the light of day for years to come. Give us Dinosaur Planet. You've got Rare on board and we know it exists in a playable state. Have a team polish it up, work out the bugs, and release it in an official capacity for the first time ever. Things like that would make the expansion pass well worth the extra cash in my mind. But unfortunately, Nintendo only occasionally does things like that. And as of right now, the new content doesn't seem like it's going to be anything special in comparison to the existing Switch Online. I really don't want to jump on the Switch Online hate train like so many others have, because I do legitimately enjoy the service. But sometimes a line has to be drawn, and you need to ask yourself some important questions. 1. Are you happy with Switch Online? 2. Are you willing to pay for extra content? And 3, is what's offered worth the price? If you answered no to any of those, then you shouldn't upgrade. You can't let a company take advantage of your loyalty to their brand. And as an individual who supports their products, you have the power to say when enough is enough. If we make it clear that we aren't okay with this, Nintendo will hopefully get the message. Because if too many of us are too forgiving with this whole mess, before we know it, Game Boy and GameCube games will be an extra $30 as well. Coming soon, the Switch Online plus Expansion Pass plus Expanded Expansion Pass. Only $79.99. Family plans start at the cost of your firstborn child's soul. Think about it critically and weigh your options carefully. And I'm not usually one to ask this sort of thing, but if you share this video around, it might help others get a better grasp on the scenario and the stakes involved. Or at least, I would hope so. Anyway, that's going to wrap things up for right now. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit it with a like, and maybe check out some of my other stuff as well. And let me know what you think about the whole scenario in the comments below, too. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the matter. Until next time, this is your good friend Sparky, signing off for now. I'll catch you later.